Welcome, fitness enthusiasts and ultimate frisbee aficionados, to the Tobu Fitness Podcast. Your guide to elevating your game and mastering the art of ultimate frisbee through the lens of strength and conditioning. Whether you're a seasoned player or just stepping onto the field for the first time, this podcast is your one-stop destination for unlocking your true potential. This is the Tobu Fitness Podcast with your host, certified strength and conditioning coach, Justin Shelby.
Real quick, before we get started, I've got to ask if you would be nice enough to share this episode. This helps me out a lot, helps get this information out to a lot more Ultimate players to be able to help them out. So if you wouldn't mind sharing this episode with your friends, your family, your teammates, putting it up on your social medias or your Instagram stories, anything like that, that would really help me out. Let's get into this episode. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast. This is episode number 11. If you can see, we're in person. Again, got a great guest today. This is AJ Merriman. AJ, how are you?
Good. I'm doing good. How are you doing, man?
Doing well. Thanks for being on the show.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. You want to start off by telling people about your background?
I was born in Southern Virginia, and I grew up in Berryville, Virginia, which is up north, closer to D.C. here, which is where we are right now. I started playing Ultimate in high school. Like after cross country, we were just throwing the disc around. I fell in love with how it was flying in the air, and found out it was a sport. Found the AUDL first by like Googling Ultimate Frisbee that night. It was like, oh, I could be pro in Ultimate. Who plays Ultimate? And now a whole lot of work has gone into becoming pro and playing for Team USA a little bit, and now I'm here being a full-time professional Ultimate player, coaching some on the side, and just trying to be the best I can be.
Yeah, that's awesome. You got to be living under a rock at this point to not have heard of you, AJ the Frisbee guy, on Instagram.
Yes, sir.
Too, right? Yeah, well, I know you play in the AUDL for DC Breeze, and then for the club you play for Truckstop. Now, this was your first season, right?
Yes, this is my first season with Truckstop.
Right on. And then you guys won a national championship. So congrats on that.
Appreciate that. Yep.
Yeah.
Thing.
Tell me what that process was like. Like, what's it like winning a club national championship?
Well, for me, it was a long season. Not even just for a lot of my teammates, a lot went into it for multiple seasons and many years, and for me as well. But being a rookie on a team is definitely a different vibe, and so like learning the guys and just trying to understand how everybody worked and where I could fit in and how I could be the best teammate to my teammates to make the whole thing work, to be the best unit. It was a grind, and then we just kept winning close games and ended up in the finals, and then you just got to do the thing. So definitely didn't feel like what I think a lot of people's national championship journeys feel like. From what I've heard from older guys that I've talked to in the past, I just felt like any other day, like just go out and do the things, and if you do the things, you're gonna win the games, and we ended up winning all of our games that we needed to.
Yeah, I think that's like a testament to your guys' like process too, right? Like you're saying, like if day in day out practices are a grind, like you're grinding together, then then going out and these tough games are just like any other day. Like you've already put in the work for that. I think that's also kind of speaks to you guys as like culture too. Like I know the Breeze culture and Truckstop are like very closely interlinked. Can you talk a little bit about like what that's like the differences between AUDL and club, or if there are any, really?
Yeah, I think that I'm very proud of how little difference there is between the culture of Breeze and Truckstop and the AUDL and club. Just because DC Ultimate has kind of grown, especially since I entered the community around 2017 was the first year I played YCC. So the first year I played like high level organized club youth Ultimate in DC. I've seen it go from kind of like in other cities, like one team kind of runs things, then everybody's following suit. Whereas in DC, it's more whoever's working the hardest is kind of setting the tone. And we even have people move into DC from other cities for work, maybe moving with a significant other. But we just kind of end up with the hardest working guys from each city is what it feels like. We just have a hard working attitude. And not just, I'm saying guys, but not just on the men's side. Like a lot of times when we have Breeze practice, we have the whole field reserved and we're not using the whole thing. And so Scandal/shadow players show up on the side, and they know we've got the field, so they're coming to work hard. And I really appreciate that. And that hard working thing, I think, is the through line of all those things. it does help to have a very similar roster. I think all but 2 or 3 people on Truckstop this season were on the Breeze, and then almost all the rest of the guys on the Breeze were on Vault, which is just super sick to have a program like that in the city.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it speaks to the city overall. It's not just one team, like you're saying. It's the culture around the entire like DC Ultimate scene that really sticks together. I think that's awesome. I guess going a little bit more into your specific game. So you mentioned you came in as a rookie for this team, really just had to try to be the best teammate that you could. What was that process like? Like, walk me through your mindset of trying to like figure out your role and then how you tried to go into that as best as you could.
Yep. So anytime I'm joining a team or it's my first time on the team, my first thing is kind of like watching film of what the team has done and see where I see myself. Like, oh, they like a big under there could have helped. Like maybe I could come in and be like a big chunker, like just cutting deep, cutting under, trying to gain yards for this team. Or like, oh, they've got good deep cutters. Maybe I could be a thrower for this team, stuff like that. But with Truckstop, it was a little bit different because I've been a fan of the team for so long. I've watched the team for so long. I remember like a very specific moment. I was with the Red Wolves at a hotel in 2022 watching U.S. Open. And I saw like my D-line out there, like the Breeze D-line, plus Ben Ort at that tournament. And I was like, I just, like FOMO, like I felt like I was missing out. So I really just wanted to get out there and just start working hard with them and just add to the fire, because I knew that they were very like had a lot of things put together on their D-line, especially. I'm always looking at it from a D-line perspective. Usually the O has stuff handled. I don't really want to play for a team if I need to play for their O. I like the D side. But so yeah, learning everybody's like ins and outs, learning everybody as better people is what I needed to do for this Truckstop team. And normally that's not where my head's at. Normally I'm thinking about it from an ultimate perspective. Troy Holland was our captain this year, and he did an amazing job of connecting with each and every single person and having like a genuine, real connection with all 26 guys on the roster. And so I kind of like by him reaching out to me and trying to learn more about me and like, watch film together and just see what each other are seeing on the field. I kind of followed suit with that and tried to like learn my teammates more and learn about people more so that I knew what they were thinking and we always had each other's backs.
Yeah. Were there any big surprises then? Like, because you said you played with a lot of these guys on Breeze, but learning them more in the club scene, was there anything that really stuck out?
The chaos of Truckstop is by far the thing that stuck out to me the most. There's not really any organization. Nobody's really in charge. It's very much like everybody's vibes. Like anybody's vibes could be prevailing at any moment. Like Jasper is very high energy and always has something like kind of out of left field for most of us, like in his head. And we love to go along with that and like just see what Jasper's thinking. Or maybe Charlie McCutcheon is saying something really funny, but like kind of quietly. And so you got to like know what he's on to like know what's going on. And there's just so much going on, that like surprised me very much. Like I thought I was coming into like because on the field we kind of seem like a unit and everything's very like organized, and off the field and just in general it's just chaos, which is kind of sick.
That's interesting because I would think the same, that like going into a very high level team, like it'd be very structured, I've kind of seen that at like the lower like sectionals, low tier regional level teams. It's like you get a lot of situations where there's like too many chefs in the kitchen and then nobody's listening, but it sounds like that's the strength of the team in a sense.
Yep.
Yeah. Sure. That's interesting.
We even I think never got to the too many chefs thing. We're more the not enough chefs, and then like somebody needs to step up and get it done, and there's always somebody to step up and get it done. But we're definitely lean to the everybody's just kind of doing their own thing, and then we're like, oh, we need to get that done. Not to put any shade on the leadership, but that was the vibes.
It worked though. Obviously, it worked. It paid off. Paid off. And then talk to me. So I know you said like you're not thinking too much on the offensive side, but I know like at least for me. So like the theme of like my coaching, my page, everything like that is I don't talk too much about strategy. But there's been so many times now where people have reached out to me asking like, how can we implement a Truckstop offense or something like that. It's like I feel like Truckstop is like iconic in the way that they kind of have their offense, the flow, the small ball style, whatever you want to call it. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, kind of your thoughts on it?
I would love to. I love when people talk about the truck stop offense. You could get all 8, 9, 10 guys that play offense for Breeze and Truck consistently in here and give them a whiteboard, and they could not teach you the truck stop offense. There's no truck stop offense. People always want to run some system or some cuts. They're like, I think, looking at it the wrong way. It's very much a chemistry thing. Definitely a front of the stack oriented offense. If we're going to talk about it like in X's and O's, but it's just players knowing where each other are going and knowing how to counter off of those things. Something I yell on the field a lot when I'm watching these guys play is there's no pass is a bad pass. Like if you can hit hands, hit the hands. So like when players come to me and tell me they want to run the truck stop offense, that's the first thing I start with is just hit hands and run hard. Knowing where the throwers' progressions are going helps a lot. A lot of the thing that I see the most out of the truck stop O that makes it the truck stop O, even I played for the Blue Devils down in the Dominican Republic for the Pan American Championships, and we had Tyler Monroe and Andrew Roy like running that offense, along with Alex Machado, a very, very good Dominican. And he looked like he'd been playing truck O his whole life just by slotting in and reading the person in front of him. And even if you're not cutting now, if you read the person in front of you and counter off their cut, if they don't get it, you're going to get it. And if they do get it, you're probably open now and you can stay open by continuing your movement. And so if you watch Blue Devils from Pan American Championships, not the truck O guys, but it's truck O. So I think it's really just about being a very internally focused offense and reading off people.
Yeah, like less about systems and principles and like being like prescribing certain movements and more just about like feeling the vibes, kind of.
Very vibes based.
Yeah, that seems like the theme of all of DC Ultimate.
Yep.
Yeah, I like it. Cool. Let's shift gears here a little bit. Instead of talking about the team, let's talk a little bit more about you and kind of your process, right? So you said, was it 2017 is when you started playing YCC, or was it AUDL?
That was the first year I tried out for a YCC team.
I see. Yep. Gotcha. And then since then, like, talk about the progression of that. Like, when you're looking at your own game and like specific things to start to improve, like where does your mindset go with that?
Yes, so each year in the off season, I'm trying to get better at the most amount of things. Like in season, it's pretty much tune up, like get better at the things you already have, and then off season, you're adding things. In 2017, I thought I had the whole game. Like I was very ignorant, blissfully ignorant. But now I'm adding like around backhands, like a strong around backhand at when my target's 5 yards away, when my target's 10 yards away, and when my target's 15 yards away. Like that's the thing that I'm thinking about a lot right now. The inside backhand. I wasn't really that into it, but then I saw Jack Williams like post. He was trying to get Joe White's inside backhand, and just the type of competitor I am, I'm like, all right, whatever. Let me get Joe White's backhand so we can do that thing. So the inside backhand, like the half pivot. Valeria is probably the best player in Ultimate right now, and she's got a very good one. So I'm kind of looking at Joe and her trying to take their stuff. And that's a consistent theme is I think about what, just by watching my own film, what I need, what I am lacking, and then I go and find players who are very good at it and then just try and replicate that. And then along the hours at the field, I see where my form or style of it is going to differ from theirs and how that's going to become a strength for me.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess like recently then when you're working on that, are there any specific drills or anything like you're doing on the field that you found has been most effective to work on that?
Throwing with a mark today. We just got back from a very good training session with Michael Klemensic, my second YCC coach, Foggy Bottom Boys. He had all of his UVA boys that are from DC out here. He had the WNL, Washington Liberty guys that he coaches out. And then how many people were out there? Probably like 20, 22?
Yeah, about that.
So it was a hodgepodge of people working out and we did footwork, and then we did mini. And then afterwards, I just found a couple people to throw with and work on the inside backhands. And that's like kind of how I brought the whole session together for me, is Like we were playing a lot. I was tired. Just found some people to throw with and worked very specifically on moving my hips first to throw the inside half of the backhand. So it's kind of like that. Just flow into something, and then I'm really tired. That's the hardest time for me to throw this. Let's throw it. And that's why I wanted to throw that backhand then.
Interesting. Yeah, I've played around with that recently too. Like, for me, I feel like one of my goals that I noticed, or kind of from the season, was like I thought my conditioning was good, and my conditioning was not good. Like playing D-line the whole year. So like track workouts and running and stuff has been a big focus in the off season. And then I feel that. So like after the track workout, I'm like, I am so tired. Like I get my breathing back, get the heart rate back down, but I'm still tired. And it's like, all right, can I lock in and throw right now? Is that something that you feel like is really effective for a lot of people?
Very effective. Yeah, I think that's the simplest thing. If you just run all the time and then throw by yourself afterwards, you can get significantly better at ultimate, even if you're very good. I don't think there's ever like a ceiling you're going to hit. Jack Williams can go run 5 miles and throw, and it'll make him a little bit better.
Right. Yeah, and that's like, if we want to talk about specificity, like that's something that I know a lot of people talk about, is like how specific is this to ultimate, and like that's exactly that. Like you can go out and throw 1,000 throws, but if you're fresh and your heart rate never gets up, then it's like that. Those were good throws. That's a good training session, but it's like how specific that is, or how specific really is that to ultimate? Like, yeah, if you're playing D-line, you're chasing your guy around, you finally get the turns. Like when you finally catch the disc, like heart rate's really high, you're breathing heavy, and you got to be able to lock in at that moment. So yeah, I think that's really good. Going back to then like your process, so you talked about like the backhands, something you're doing now. Somewhere along the line, like between 2017 and now, what was like the thing that you found that kind of elevated your game the most?
It's a good question. It's hard to say. There's a couple things. I think the conditioning, like just start to finish, like went up the most. I wasn't in very good condition in 2017, and now I'd say I'm, or at least last season, maybe not currently, was in very good condition. But also just the feel of the game, like understanding what everybody else is doing on the field without being able to see it, like with a quick check, goes a super long way. So I'd say it's either conditioning or my general field sense. That's kind of a broad thing. But there's some specific things that you can do to work on, like general field sense. Rowan showed me my favorite one that I still do whenever I'm watching film is just blink a bunch or close your eyes and then open them for close your eyes for 5 seconds, then open them and then close them for another 5 seconds. So you're just like peeking. And if you can follow the game, then your field sense is pretty good. If you open your eyes and you're surprised at what's going on, either something crazy happened on the field or probably, you just weren't as locked in with the game as you thought you were. So just understanding how everybody's moving and why people are moving where they're moving goes a long way. It's like working smarter, not harder. So being able to have the conditions so you can work hard and then making your life easier. They pair together, and I think that's why I've gotten so much better so quickly. But those two, it's up to you, whichever you think I got better at best.
Yeah. Do you find that there's a specific like camera angle when you're watching film that works best for that? Or
I love to talk about like film and camera angles. I've been emailing Multiworld all off season in their ear. I think if you can see everybody, if you're watching film for tactical getting better purposes, then if you can see all 14 people on the field, that's the best. In the NFL, they call it the all 22. It's like the camera on the top of the stadium. That's what the coaches are watching. That's what you watch in the film sessions. So the all 14 is the best. I forget what Multiworld calls it, but like the field pass, where there's no commentators. They just put an extra camera up on wherever they have their cameras and they film another field. I really enjoy that footage. The truck dig game from Nationals. Some people might know that game. That's like that camera angle is my favorite because you can see everything and there's not a lot of it's not very artistic. There's not a lot of opinion going into what's being filmed. You just have everything so that you can see everything.
I see.
Which is huge.
What do you think about, I don't know what camera angle you call it. Like I see the flat baller guys film it the most, where it's like at the back of the
back end zone, like level with the I kind of hate that. I can't really stand that.
Really?
Yeah, I don't like that. If you're making a cool video, like it's good shots and you can make a cool video out of it. I've seen a lot of videos that I enjoy from that angle, but if that's the angle you have for the game, kind of sucks if you're trying to get better.
That makes sense. Yeah, because I guess you don't see the depth too, right?
That's another huge thing. There's a lot goes into it. You can't see, like, when people get horizontal. It's also generally focused on the disc, which most of what's going on is not with the disc. For AUDL, I have this pet peeve because most of what I do in the AUDL is like 30 yards away from the disc. Like, that's generally where I'm guarding people, and it's just never on camera. And so, like, I can't see my footwork. I can't see the timing. Like, I've gotten really good at, like, when I leave and when I come back on camera, or when my person leaves and comes back on camera, like I know when I should be coming back in, or I know when they should be coming back in. If they come back in camera a little slow, I'm like, oh, I did my job there. Like, that's probably what I was trying to do. But yeah, so I really like when you can see what's happening away from the disc.
See, I like that. Yeah, that makes sense too. I've never thought about that with like the closing the eyes and stuff, but yeah, that's a really interesting drill. I've heard, I was listening to a podcast with he's an NBA strength and conditioning coach, and he was talking about how I think they had like some markers or like heart rate units or something on a lot of the players, and they were seeing that the better players were having like way less outputs, so they weren't having to like run as hard. Their heart rate wasn't getting up as high during the game, and some of the other coaches were like, oh, we need to like condition these guys more, like they've got to train harder. And his mind immediately went to like, no, they're the better players because they have lower outputs. Like they're constantly in the right position, so then they're working smarter, not working harder. And like a lot of times worse players make up for like a lack of game sense and field sense by just running harder and chasing your guy more, like more energy output essentially.
I'd say you see that more in Ultimate than most sports, because of the point in time that we are in Ultimate. Ultimate's a new sport, so we've got a lot of people that can just work hard and be good at Ultimate because of how hard they're working, or how fast they are, how high they can jump. So that makes a lot of sense. I come from a running background. I ran most of my young athletic career. My mom was a runner collegiately and very good in high school, won a couple of state championships in cross country. You want the lowest heart rate. If you have a low resting heart rate, if you're sitting around with a bunch of runners, they're probably going to be checking their resting heart rate and be like, oh yeah, mine's way lower than yours. One of my favorite drills to do is shuttles. It's just a great Ultimate drill because it helps you change direction and your conditioning. But so doing some shuttles and then trying to get my heart rate as low as quickly as possible before I start my next rep. So can't start the next rep until my heart rate is resting again. So say it's 50, and then I do my sprinting and it's 105. Then I can't sprint again until it's probably 60, and then got to sprint again. And from the beginning of a season, when I'm in preseason shape, it'll probably take a couple of minutes, and then I've gotten it down to under a minute. Like when I was in the best shape of my life, I felt like during the AUDL season.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. How quick did you see that progress too, of like it getting back down pretty quick?
Months. Yeah. Took a while, and it's a very fairly frustrating activity if you're thinking about it. But when you go head empty and you're just breathing and letting it happen, then it becomes very nice.
Right on. If you're going out there to the field solo, like what's a typical training session look like?
Footwork right now, I'm very focused on my footwork. Slow feet don't eat. If your feet have a mind of their own, you're going to end up in better situations even when you mess up because your footwork is good. So staying balanced. Pretty much when I go to the fields, it's like warm up, hit some footwork, throw, and then see how I'm feeling. And maybe if it's a high intensity day, do some shuttles or run around on the field and play a game in my head. Another one I got from Rowan. You can always just pull and then run down the pull and then play defense, do some footwork just out on the field like you're playing. That's a fun one. I've been throwing a lot here recently after I do my footwork though, and I very much enjoy if you have a stack of 10 or more discs, doing the same throw over and over again, because each throw helps you adjust for the next throw. Lethal Shooter is one of my favorite Instagram accounts, and he's from around here in DC. But shooters don't miss twice, because if you miss once, you know exactly what you need to do to dial it in and get the next throw correct. So especially when a throw is going from one of your worst throws to trying to make it one of your best throws, having a lot of, 10 or so discs in a row to be able to just rep it out. That's what I greatly enjoy, especially during the off season.
Right on. Are you throwing into like a net when you're doing that, or is that more kind of out into the open?
I enjoy the net when I'm trying to get a lot of reps. Sometimes I'll go out and my goal is to get a lot of reps. So then I'll go into the net. But then other times the finish of the throw is important enough that I opt to not use the net. So if I really want my say my IO flick to finish flat and to not like die hard on the IO, I won't throw in a net. I'll maybe try and find a field with lines so I know how far I'm throwing it and if it's ending the way I would like it to. But that's also if you're not driving around looking for a field or you can't get to the field with lines, then it doesn't matter too much. But when you're thinking about that, it's nice to have both options depending on what your mindset is.
Right, absolutely. Do you feel like there's a big difference between solo throwing and if you have a partner or a group?
Yes, I do not like going to the field to throw with somebody. I actually avoid it.
Interesting. Why is that?
I don't know. I feel like you get more into like the tossing mode. It can be a little less focused on your form. When I am throwing with somebody, I like to either quickly get it out or I'm more working on the catch to throw, like that section, and less on the throw. So like my footwork, like how quickly I'm changing my grip. That's the kind of stuff I'm thinking about when I'm throwing with somebody. That's also stuff I don't want to say can't, but it's harder to work on that stuff without a partner. So when you have a partner, I really enjoy working on that stuff. But when I don't have a partner, I'm like purely focused on like the throw, the wind up and the throw, less on the catch and the footwork of it all. You still can toss it to yourself, but
right, just finding like the specific thing that you can work on in the situation.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I guess if you had to pick like 3 drills, I guess, like you're going out to the field right now, perfect off-season workout. Like what are 3 drills that you're gonna do?
Yep. And I'm shout out my boy Matt Thomas. We got a session later. I'm coaching him, and we're gonna do these 3. So warm up, that doesn't count. But then we're gonna do figure 8 sprints. And so my Instagram, like all over my Instagram, you do a little figure 8, like tight footwork pattern, and then explode out of it in 20-yard sprint, and then walk back about 30 seconds between reps, and then do another one in about 8 reps. So that if it's a high intensity day, you can cut it down to 4 if it's not a high intensity day, and it's just a great way to get your heart rate up quickly after your body is warmed up. That helps everything, every aspect of my game. I feel like that has improved since I started doing it about 2 years ago with my speed coach from high school. That's the first one. Second one, I'll go defensive. I call it the defensive triangle drill. I set up a couple of cones. You backpedal or shuffle, whichever you're probably doing in a game. You can switch up whatever it is though. The point is you're pretending to guard somebody in the stack. When you get halfway into the stack, you shift, whether you want to force them under, force them out, or play them even. And you can get really technical about your footwork and how you're shuffling there, which I like to get very technical about my footwork. So it's a good drill to do it in. And then when you get to the last cone, it's the back of the stack. They're making a cut. Then you explode underneath. Then there's a decision cone. If you're doing it by yourself or with one person, you can just script it. They're going to cut deep 3 times. Then we'll do 3 times where they make a belly cut, 7 cut across the front of the stack. So when you get to that decision cone, you got more footwork to nail, and then you're either cutting across or cutting deep. You can do it by yourself. You can do it with one person. You can do it with a whole team of people. It's just a fun one to nail down defensive footwork. And you can make it small, get a lot of reps. You can make it big, AUDL sized, very variable. Those are definitely my go-to. Third one, off season by myself. These are the parameters. What am I doing? I really like finding a cut that you want to do in a game and making sure you're nailing the footwork. So I have some hexagons, footwork hexagons. You could use some cones, set some cones down. You could lay some shirts on the ground, but something so that you are making sure that you're nailing your footwork and you know exactly what your feet are doing when you're making a cut. So jog back into the stack to start this drill, and then make a cut where you know, like, you're jabbing, you're maybe right jab, left jab in the box, and then you're exploding out of it. Or maybe it's a half jab to the right and then left jab, and whatever it is. But nailing the footwork, like making sure you know where your feet are at on a cut. I'd probably say that's my third go-to, even though it's kind of a loose drill.
No, I like that for sure. I think that's huge, because I get that question all the time. Like, how can I improve my cuts or juking the defender or anything like that? And it's like, well, how often do you practice that? And it's like that's the very first thing. You got to go out there and actually rep that stuff out. But I like that. So you have a very big emphasis on footwork in your workouts.
So if you don't eat.
That's right. Can you kind of walk me through? So I guess with like the defensive one, like you said, you're very, very detailed on your footwork. Like what are some of the things that you're really focusing on? Or like, I guess if you're coaching somebody, like what are things that you're looking at?
I'm not sure if there's actual terminology on this, but what I call an open hip shuffle. So a lot of times when you're shuffling, it's straight, like laterally, your feet are in line, and that's the line that you're shuffling on. But a lot of times in ultimate, we want to be using our body to deny something on defense. So if my body is denying somebody on defense, denying the deep, and I'm trying to contest the underneath, say we're force flick, I'm going to have my body kind of a 45-degree angle to my person. And so I want to be able to shuffle, or, I guess shuffle is the right word for it, but move backwards while staying in that position. And if I'm turning my hips every time I'm trying to move, I'm not going to be able to deny that whenever they make their cut. So I call it an open hip shuffle, and it's kind of like similar to offensive lineman footwork, and you're just shuffling backwards in that orientation. And it's helped me a ton when I'm maybe checking the disc and my person uses that as their cue to cut. Because if I'm checking the disc and they start moving, as long as I'm in that open hip shuffle, I'm good to go. They're going to run right into me, or they're going to bump me enough that I can turn with them and go with them. So that's the thing that I'm on the most with almost everybody that I coach, because I think that's a very ultimate specific footwork and movement, and not a lot of people think about it, not a lot of people do it. So I'm big on that right now.
Gotcha. So it's kind of like just keeping your hips square to the person as you're able to move around with them, pretty much.
Yep. Like one of my cues is, how would you like to guard this person? And now if they're moving, how would you move and while staying in this position?
Right. Almost like basketball then, in a sense, but just expand it out a lot more.
Very big. Yep.
Yeah. No, that makes sense for sure. And then for cutting too, like, are there specific things? Like, I know you talked about like the jab with the hexagons and stuff, but any other cues or specific things you're looking at?
Getting low, a lot of stuff that you talk about, it's all like force absorption and like change of speed stuff, staying on your toes and letting your whole like leg chain absorb the impact. And you got to be low, get your hips low to do that. If you're off balance, you're either not going to slow down quickly, it's going to start to hurt over time, you'll slip, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, 100%. Do you have any like drills that you would say, like saying that they're a hot take, I guess doesn't technically make sense, but like, do you have any drills that people might look at and go, that's kind of weird, or I don't think that's really effective, or that's not specific to ultimate, but you find have a lot of value?
I have some very ultimate specific ones that people kind of don't love, or I don't see people doing, even though I've shared with them. I got this from Frank Huguenard. He calls it juke till you puke. It's my favorite thing. I call it 1B0 sometimes, depending on the vibes of it. You can do juke till you puke. That's a very high intensity, or you can warm up with 1B0. You're just tossing yourself the disc, and the idea is to be balanced and ready to move when you catch the disc. So you're going to throw it with your catching grip. So however you catch it, you got to throw it, and then you're going to get to it, slow down, catch it, and explode out. If you are very good at it, you can be throwing the disc 10 or so yards, but it helps to start with like 2-yard throws. So you're just tossing the disc and a whole lot of spin on it. It helps with the throw. It helps with your balance. It helps with your catching, like reading. It helps with a ton of things. If it's very windy, it's a very fun drill to do. But yeah, you're just tossing the disc to yourself and changing directions. Helps you feel elusive. Helps you get in like different like shin angles that you're not normally at. Helps you throw different stuff, which you're not always going to throw them in a game. But if you have a better control of the disc, a better understanding of how the disc flies, the things you can do to the disc, then you're going to be a better ultimate player. So I really, really enjoy the 1v0 juke till you puke drill. It's great for warm-ups. Yeah.
And are you doing that for like distance moving forward, or is that for time? Or
normally juke till you puke, you're going to do it till you can't, or 45 seconds. 30 seconds is also a good area to start at, or time period to start at. But 1v0, if you're doing it more like to get warmed up, then you could do like 10 or 20 throws.
That's interesting. That's interesting you say that, because that's something I've been thinking about a lot recently. It's like PJF performance.
Yep.
So big basketball guy, obviously, and he talks a lot about like coordinated warm-ups and doing warm-ups where it's just the weirdest, like wackiest stuff that you would never do in game, but you get really coordinated in like the gather, right? Because everybody works on dribbling, everybody works on finishing, but that gather from dribbling to finishing is not worked on a lot. So you rep that out 30, 40, 50 times in a warm-up, and it's like you get a ton of reps of that. And so I've been playing around with exactly that, like just toss myself the disc and then move to the side, toss myself, and then you get quick like 40, 50 reps of like that quick catch to dish out or catch the throw. So yeah, I like the high intensity aspect of that too. Yeah.
There's another one also that I got kind of from PJ posted something. I think it was Jaws warm up, but then I just kind of riffed off that. But you're shuffling in a circle, and I do this with the people I personally coach a lot, and I'll toss them a ball, a lacrosse ball or a tennis ball. They've got to catch the ball, keep it above their head, and toss it back to me while they're shuffling in a circle. So it's stuff you're doing on the field a lot individually, but kind of into just like a somewhat fun game of shuffling in a circle, catching the ball and tossing it back. And then when you get good at that, and then add in change of directions every once in a while, you got to shuffle back the other way. Just a fun way to warm up, not necessarily ultimate specific. Works like I feel it the most on the marks. Like it's very easy to keep your shoulders and arms disassociated from the rest of your body after doing this drill.
Right. Yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah, I think your point too about like it not being ultimate specific is actually good in a sense, right? Because like I love ultimate, but also a lot of people don't come from like any sort of athletic background when playing ultimate, so we're missing out on like being athletes, like just to be like pretty blunt with it, right? So like doing a lot of that stuff in the warm-up where it's just like general coordination, just general like athletic stuff, like stuff that almost looks like PE class, like I think is huge, because it develops like a lot of movements and coordination that like you don't really get in the sport a lot of times.
My mom is a college or a high school track and cross country coach, and she is always hanging these like things up on the wall in the athletic hallway. It's I don't know the specific stats, and I probably should know, but almost all D1 football players that end up as NFL football players were multi-sport athletes in college or in high school. Like playing other sports, like being a well-rounded athlete makes you better at every single sport. There's not a sport where if you just do it all the time, you're going to be better at it than somebody that's also playing another sport. Maybe like wrestling. I think that's like the one where the stats are kind of like you should just wrestle all the time.
Right. Yeah, no, because that's a huge thing in other sports now. Like you look at golf, for example, and you have these like 8-year-olds that are so specialized. They start working with like a PGA pro, right? And by 8, 9, 10, they get really good. But it's just because it's like no other 8, 9, 10-year-old is playing that much. So you peak when you're 10 years old. But then, the kid that's been playing basketball, football, soccer that now decides to go play golf, like they're so much more in tune with their body. They're just so much more athletic that then when you teach them how to golf, like it's going to all come together.
Yep.
So yeah, exactly that. Like I've talked about before too, like you look at what project players are. A lot of times project players are just athletes that then you have to give the skill of ultimate. And like they came from other sports, right? Football, basketball, soccer, and all that stuff.
Yep. And a lot of people say ultimate is a like very skill-based sport. Like you need to have, like you've got to be able to throw to play ultimate. But arguably our best player ever, Bo Kittredge couldn't throw, and he's one of the best ultimate players ever. So like you can definitely in ultimate currently add the skills after you've worked on the athleticism. But athleticism is very important. As good of a thrower, as skilled as you can be, you've got to have some athletic ability to play, to be very good at any level.
Right, 100%. Yeah, and then when you get somebody that like has both like maxed out, pretty much like the sliders are all the way up, like then it's over, right? Like if you take Bo and then you turn his 2K like throwing sliders all the way to the edge, like he's going to be like even greater than he was, right? So yeah, I think like having people understand too that it's not like one or the other. Like nobody's out there saying like, oh, you just got to be an athlete and like forget throwing, or like you forget being an athlete, like you've just got to throw. It's just like if you can get really good at both and see them as separate things, then it's game over. Right. Yeah. Well, cool. Let's shift a little bit more. Yes, we talked a lot about you as a player, and you mentioned a couple times that you're coaching as well. What are some of like the biggest flaws, and I guess, or things that like weaknesses you've seen in a lot of players, and you know things that improving those things has like helped their game the most?
I'd say kind of what we just talked about, like seeing themselves as an ultimate player, as an athlete, and a ultimate specific skill athlete. Like people don't often see themselves as the two sides of the coin, as an athlete and a very skilled ultimate technician. So when I see players kind of like wrap all the parts of their training into one and treat it as getting better at ultimate by being an athlete and the skill stuff, that's when they start to like make strides. Like you can't just like I'm an all right ultimate player, but I need to be more athletic. Like that's at least not the mindset that's gonna take you places, and vice versa. So especially coaching like college age guys, that's huge for them. Like being able to wrap the whole thing into one and be on the track and take a disc with them, go to the weight room and then throw, like do all the things while watching film, like wrapping it all together, whatever that looks like for you. Like some people don't watch a lot of film, some people don't lift that much. You can't really force anybody to do anything. So just hitting your stride as an all-encompassing like ultimate athlete is huge. And so it's mostly a mindset thing for me. That's what I can coach the best, because that's what I see lacking in the most amount of people. And it's so easy to coach somebody when they've got the mindset, and all you got to do is give them some drills, help them with some technique. That's easy. I greatly enjoy doing that, but that's not what you see most of the time. Right.
Yeah, it's kind of like not hand-holding in a sense, but like you've kind of got to push them down the road a lot of times, or the right path in a sense. Sometimes, yeah. And are there any kind of like innovative things, I guess, that you're implementing with a lot of the people that you're coaching? Like, are there places that you see the game progressing that you're trying to kind of work into the people that you coach?
Simply being able to throw and go is huge. I think whichever way you think the game is going, whether that's like hex, I think that's still a way that people I think the game is generally shifting, like a more spaced out style of play. Being able to throw and go is huge. I wouldn't call this innovative, but like inside pivot, like being able to pivot multiple ways and understanding why you're pivoting and where, or why you're pivoting where on the field. Japan's been doing that forever, or for a very long time. So that's huge, and we're not focused that much in the U.S. on the pivoting. So throwing and going, pivoting, those are, I think, the big things that I think the game is going very small ball. People have probably heard of shredding, like where it's more of a motion-based offense. It's less about like let's set somebody up in space in isolation, and more about using the whole team as a unit and bouncing the ball around these points. So yeah, being able to throw with 1 foot in the air and already running somewhere is huge, and then it helps emphasize your fakes. It helps you be balanced and actually fake quicker and move from like as far as you can on a flick side to as far as you can on a backhand side better, because you're getting all that weight on your front foot to push off, and the weight isn't there already when you're about to throw. I think those are definitely the most innovative things. Ultimate right now is at a spot where very simple things can be innovative, and it is more about being very intentional about what you want to do. Truckstop is very intentional about how they're playing offense. They don't even really need a prescribed system for it to be innovative. So that's kind of where my head's at, like innovation wise. I'm definitely always trying to innovate. Like that's just how I like sports. Like I love Steph Curry. He's one of my favorite basketball players. I watch a lot of snowboarding and skiing and stuff. And when people are just doing different stuff, it's sick. And that alone can, in a sport that we play with defense, like distract your defender. Like if your defender doesn't know what's going on or they're thinking about something else, then it'll work. So if you're running around the field yelling shred, we're shredding, but you're just doing good balance throwing goes, like it's gonna work. So that's kind of.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I think that's a good point too. Like, Steph Curry came into the league like 2009-ish, I think, right? But then him coming into the league completely changed how basketball is played now. And at the time, like when he came into the league, when he was a rookie, like basketball was already like over 100 years old. So you could say like, oh, the game was already evolved and then evolved even more. Yeah. And Ultimate is so young as a sport, like just hit 50 years, I think not too long ago. Mm-hmm. So exactly that. I think to think that we have all the answers right now is ridiculous.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. So exactly, it's like you constantly got to be like thinking and changing and wanting to innovate. So I think, yeah, I really admire like, the stuff that you're doing and I've seen like, the stuff that you've posted where like you're trying to innovate and come up with new ideas and be like open to new ideas that are out there too. Cause I know there are some ideas out there like on Reddit that are instantly shot down, but like you got to kind of hear them out, like be open to them and see what's up.
And you never know what's going to come out of an idea. Because you could be talking about a whole system. Somebody's got a new system that they think is perfect. And for me, this is like hex. Like when I look at the hex stuff, a lot of it's like, all right, that's whatever, it's cool. But then the shape of it is huge for me. Like when I've done this stuff with Frank Huguenard, the shredding stuff, you end up, when you're running a motion offense, you end up in kind of a hex. Like if you space out like you would on a basketball court, on an ultimate field, you end up kind of in a hex. You've got your post man, you've got some deep people, you've got some wings, you've got some help, and the ball, like that's kind of a hex. So you never know what, like by learning about the game, by being a student of the game, you're gonna pick pieces up here and there and put them together in your style. Like a lot of people be like, oh, I've seen that. Somebody like these people ran that then. Like it's good to know all those things, but to kind of be, I guess, egotistical enough to think you've seen the exact thing before. You've just seen pieces of it and you're knowledgeable. You should then take that and maybe see what worked, what's working for them and what didn't work for them. And maybe some of those answers will help each other out. So it's just good to know things. Like it's great to know things.
100%. Yeah, I heard a quote not too long ago. I don't even remember the exact quote, but it was something along those lines. Like, if you judge an entire system just based off of how one person implemented it, and it's like you're not actually like that's a very unfair like representation of what that system was, right? So actually, like looking deeper, I think is huge, right? Cool. Got two more questions just to kind of wrap it up. What are some of the biggest training flaws that I think that you see, like players out there doing, like maybe very, very common drills that you see on like high school or college practices, or players out there, doing solo stuff? Like what's something that you feel like is, for lack of better terms, kind of a big waste of time?
Yes. The thing that I feel people waste their time the most on is working very hard with no intent. It feels like you're just burning energy. For me, it feels like you're just burning energy and not getting better. And you could be getting a little bit better, but not based on the amount of energy you're outputting. So like if you go into a workout and you don't know what you got better at when you leave, to me that's a waste. Like if you can't break it down, this is what I got better at today. I might have gotten better at that. I wasn't really focused on that. It's good to know that you might have gotten better at that, but you weren't really focused on it. Whereas if you just are running a track workout very hard, like that's cool, but did you get faster today? Like you got to leave the field knowing I got a little bit faster today. I increased my my resting heart rate. I increased my anaerobic capacity. That's you should know that. That will help your brain and your soul like connect and be better and be a better athlete when you leave, because otherwise you're just out there running your meat suit around, you know?
Yeah, it's literally like we talked about earlier, like just having higher outputs for the sake of having higher outputs, but like work smarter, not harder a lot of times. Yeah, cool. Well, the final question I have, I try to end all episodes now with this one because it's one of my favorite questions, but like I think a lot of times, like we've talked kind of a lot about like the answers in a sense, right? But I think a lot of times it's about asking better questions than just having the answers. So for me, like I want to know what the best minds are questioning, right? Like I want to know what keeps LeBron up at night thinking about basketball. So when you're thinking about Ultimate, like now, what are the biggest questions you have? I know we kind of touched on this a little bit, but yeah, what are some of the biggest questions you have about Ultimate at the moment?
There's a couple. First one is O-line and D-line. I don't know about the O-line and D-line thing. I try to not think about it too much because it's also like I'm on teams that are running O-lines and D-lines. But I'm not convinced on the O-line and D-line. Maybe you got 10 guys that can play the whole game, and they should play the whole game because they're that much better than the other team. That's as far as I'm going to go with that one. The other one that I think about a whole lot, I got to think about how to phrase this succinctly. What ratio of dribbling to hucking is ideal? Right now, we're at, depending on the division and the league, we huck about at least 50% of the time. There's a huck or a deep throw, based on on the throws. The 0 to 5 yard throws are greatly outnumbered by the 15 to 30 yard throws. I think it should be closer to 80% dribbling, 20% hucking, maybe even 90-10, because then the hucks are going to be free. You're only going to huck it when it's free, when you have to huck it, as I would say as a coach, like it's wide open. Your cutter's going to be pissed that you didn't throw it. So I think it's closer to 90-10, and right now we're more at maybe even 80-20 the other way, 70-30.
Interesting. Just to relate it back to basketball then, so it's kind of like I guess driving versus shooting the three in a sense.
I would call it more ISO versus motion. Like we're running all ISOs right now. Pretty much the American style is move the ball so you can get an ISO. Run a side stack is just ISO. Vert stack is ISO. Host stack is two people isolated. The whole systems are around isolating people in big space. If you can get somebody in big space, that's the easiest way to throw around the mark. We're kind of thinking like we want to throw to the break side. That's juicy. That's where you want to get the ball. So it's like, how do we do that? And to me, I think the best players year in and year out show that they play without a mark the most. Christian Boxley had the most time, I'd say, with the ball unmarked. I haven't done the stat, but he's the best break thrower to me, and he's throwing flat backhands straight to the person on the break side. Whereas traditionally you're going to think of the best break thrower as somebody that can step out around the mark the best. But if you can just get the ball without the mark, you're going to be very good. So, and in a dribbling, in a 80-20 system, you're going to be throwing a lot of break throws without the mark. The Colombians do that the best systematically to me. They're throwing without the mark all the time. They just, if you see hands, you're throwing it. And then you catch the ball, you see more hands, you're going to throw it. Don't let the mark set up. Get the ball out.
Yeah, and just keep moving, like stall one, stall two type throws. Yeah, I like that a lot. Well, cool. AJ, where can people find you if they're interested in coaching? Where can they get more info?
Link in my bio on Instagram, AJ that frisbee guy. There's a website there. I don't know the website yet. Throw it in the description of this.
Yeah, we'll put all the stuff down in the description in the show notes, all linked up. Well, cool. AJ, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you very much. Big fan. Appreciate it.
You've been listening to the Tobu Fitness Podcast. Our passion is to be your guide in elevating your game and mastering the art of ultimate frisbee through the lens of strength and conditioning. No hype, just substance. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, hit us up on Instagram and YouTube at Tobu Fitness. And to get info on one-on-one coaching and training programs, hit the website at tobufitness.com. Thanks so much for listening, and see you next time on the Tobu Fitness Podcast.